In 2016, Jordan Peterson stood in front of a lecture hall and said something that made the entire room go silent. He said, "Dostoevsky understood something about human nature that we've spent the last century trying to forget, and that forgetting is destroying us." 3 students walked out, but Peterson kept talking, because what Dostoevsky saw in 1860s Russia is happening right now, in your city, in your life, in you, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is the Hidden Codex. Jordan Peterson, clinical psychologist, professor, author of Maps of Meaning and 12 Rules for Life. But before any of that, he was a reader, a deep reader, the kind who doesn't just read books but lives inside them, wrestles with them, lets them change him. And one author changed Peterson more than any other, Fyodor Dostoevsky, 1821 to 1881, Russian novelist, epileptic, former prisoner, gambling addict, a man who descended into every hell the human psyche can create, and came back with a map. Dostoevsky wrote about suffering, about pride, about the underground man who refuses to submit, about Raskolnikov who believes he's beyond good and evil, about the Grand Inquisitor who wants to save humanity by enslaving it. But Peterson saw something in these stories that most readers miss, something darker, something more urgent, a warning, not about society, not about politics, about you, about what happens when a man loses his connection to meaning, to responsibility, to the sacred. And according to Peterson, millions of modern men have already lost it. They just don't know it yet. Before we go deeper into what Peterson discovered in Dostoevsky's work, if you sense there's more to existence than what you've been told, if you're ready to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature and modern life, subscribe to the Hidden Codex and turn on notifications, because what comes next cannot be unlearned. Now, let's continue. Peterson didn't just read Dostoevsky, he studied him. For decades, he assigned notes from underground to his students. He lectured on crime and punishment for hours. He called the brothers Karamazov the greatest book ever written. But why? What did Peterson see in these dark Russian novels that made him dedicate so much of his intellectual life to them? The answer is simple and terrifying. Dostoevsky predicted the crisis of modern men, not metaphorically, literally. He saw exactly what would happen when men stopped believing in anything transcendent, when they stopped submitting to any higher order, when they started thinking they could create their own values, their own meaning, their own morality. And Dostoevsky showed what happens next: nihilism, resentment, violence, self-destruction, not because men become evil, but because they become hollow, empty, unmoored, floating in an abyss of their own creation. Peterson calls this the catastrophe of meaninglessness, and he believes we're living through it right now. Let's start with notes from underground. 1864. Dostoevsky's most disturbing work. It's short, just over 100 pages. But Peterson says it contains the most accurate psychological portrait ever written. The portrait of a man at war with existence itself. The underground man. That's what Dostoevsky calls him. He's intelligent, educated, self-aware, but he's also paralyzed, bitter, consumed by spite. He lives alone in a basement. He has no friends, no purpose, no connection to anything beyond himself. And here's what makes him terrifying. He knows it. He sees his own pathology with perfect clarity, and he refuses to change. Why? Because changing would mean admitting he was wrong. It would mean submitting to something outside himself, to social convention, to moral law, to reality, and the underground man will not submit. He'd rather suffer than bow. He'd rather destroy himself than admit his own limitations. Peterson read this and recognized something. He'd seen this pattern before, in his clinical practice, in his students, in himself, the intelligent young man who retreats from life, who builds elaborate justifications for his retreat, who turns his isolation into a philosophy, who convinces himself he's too smart, too aware, too sensitive for the degrading compromises of ordinary existence. And Peterson understood what Dostoevsky was really saying. This isn't freedom. This is hell, self-imposed, self-maintained, and completely avoidable. Because the underground man isn't suffering from external oppression. He's suffering from his own pride, his refusal to participate, his contempt for everything outside his own head. Dostoevsky wrote, "I am a sick man. I am a spiteful man. I am an unattractive man." That's how Notes from Underground begins. And the underground man knows he's sick, but he wears his sickness like armor, like proof of his superiority. Peterson saw this happening everywhere. Young men dropping out, not because they can't succeed, but because succeeding would require humility, effort, vulnerability. It would require admitting they're not special, that they have to play the same game as everyone else, that they have to earn their place. And many modern men would rather retreat into resentment than face that reality. But Dostoevsky showed where this leads. The underground man ends up tormenting a young prostitute named Liza. Why? Because she showed him compassion, and he can't tolerate that. He can't accept genuine human connection, so he destroys it, deliberately, cruelly. This is what Peterson calls the metaphysics of resentment. When you refuse to engage with life, you start to hate life, and everyone in it. And eventually, you start to hate yourself most of all. Now, let's go deeper. Crime and Punishment. 1866. Dostoevsky's masterpiece of psychological horror, and Peterson's most taught novel. The protagonist is Raskolnikov, a brilliant young student, poor, isolated, consumed by a theory. The theory that some men are extraordinary, above ordinary morality, beyond good and evil, free to transgress if it serves a higher purpose. Sound familiar? It should, because every generation produces men who believe this, men who think they've transcended conventional ethics, men who believe the rules don't apply to them because they're smarter, more aware, more evolved. Raskolnikov decides to test his theory. He murders an old pawnbroker with an axe. He tells himself it's rational. She's worthless. He needs the money. He's special. He has the right. But here's what Peterson emphasizes. The moment Raskolnikov commits the murder, his entire world collapses. Not because he gets caught, but because he can't bear what he's done. The guilt doesn't come from society's judgment. It comes from within, from his own conscience, from a moral law he thought he'd escaped, but actually can't escape. And this is Dostoevsky's darkest insight. You are not the author of your own values. You think you are. You think you can decide for yourself what's right and wrong, what matters and what doesn't. But you can't. There's something deeper in you, something older, something that judges you even when you think you're beyond judgment. Peterson calls this the voice of conscience. Jung called it the self. Dostoevsky called it the image of God. Different words, same reality. There's a structure inside you that you didn't create. And when you violate it, you suffer. Not because of external punishment, but because you've shattered your own psyche. Raskolnikov spends the rest of the novel in agony. He's physically free. No one suspects him. but internally, he's in hell. He can't sleep, can't eat, can't think clearly. He's haunted, not by the ghost of the old woman, but by his own violated conscience. And Peterson uses this to explain something crucial about modern men. Many believe they've moved beyond traditional morality, beyond religion, beyond the old patriarchal structures. They think they're free, but they're not free. They're unmoored. And the aimlessness they feel, the anxiety, the depression, the sense that nothing matters, that's not freedom. That's the psychological equivalent of what Raskolnikov experienced, the collapse that comes from violating your own deepest nature. Dostoevsky knew this. He'd lived it. In 1849, he was arrested for participating in a liberal intellectual circle. He was sentenced to death. He stood in front of a firing squad. He waited for the bullets. They never came. At the last moment, the sentence was commuted. It was a mock execution, a cruel psychological torture designed by the Tsar. Dostoevsky was sent to Siberia instead. 4 years hard labor, 4 years in chains, 4 years among criminals and murderers. And something happened to him there. His progressive atheism shattered. His faith in rationalist ideology collapsed. He emerged from prison a different man, still brilliant, still sensitive, but no longer naive about human nature, no longer convinced that reason alone could save humanity. He'd seen too much. The cruelty, the violence, the chaos that erupts when men stop believing in anything sacred. And this experience shaped everything he wrote afterward, including the text Peterson calls the most profound piece of literature ever composed, The Grand Inquisitor, from the brothers Karamazov, 1880. It's a story within a story. Ivan Karamazov, the intellectual brother, tells it to Alyosha, the faithful brother. In the story, Christ returns to earth during the Spanish Inquisition. He performs miracles. The people recognize him. They rejoice. And the Grand Inquisitor has him arrested. That night, the Inquisitor visits Christ in his cell, and he speaks. For pages and pages he speaks, and what he says is horrifying. He says, "You made a mistake. You gave humanity freedom, the freedom to choose good or evil, the freedom to accept or reject God. But humanity doesn't want freedom. Freedom is unbearable. It creates anxiety, responsibility, suffering. What humanity wants is security, certainty, someone to tell them what to do, someone to take the burden of choice away from them." And the Inquisitor says, "We fixed your mistake. We took away their freedom. We gave them miracles, mystery, and authority. We gave them bread and spectacle. We gave them a system that tells them how to live, and they're happy, finally happy. So we don't need you anymore. In fact, you're a threat, because if they remember what real freedom is, they might want it back, and that would destroy the comfortable slavery we've built for them." The Inquisitor finishes his speech. He waits for Christ to respond, to argue, to condemn him. Christ says nothing. He simply walks forward and kisses the old man on his lips. The Inquisitor trembles. He opens the cell door. He tells Christ to leave and never return, and Christ walks out into the darkness. Peterson lectures on this chapter for hours because it contains everything: the psychology of tyranny, the seduction of security over freedom, the unbearable weight of genuine choice, and the silent truth that confronts all justifications. But here's what Peterson emphasizes most. The Grand Inquisitor isn't evil. He's not a monster. He genuinely believes he's helping humanity. He's seen how people suffer under the weight of freedom, how they make terrible choices, how they destroy themselves and others. So he's created a system to protect them from themselves, a benevolent totalitarianism, and from his perspective, it works. But Peterson asks, what does it cost? What do you lose when you give up your freedom for security? When you let someone else tell you what to believe, what to value, how to live? You lose your soul. Not metaphorically. You lose the part of you that can grow, that can transform, that can encounter genuine meaning. You become a comfortable slave, well-fed, entertained, empty. And Dostoevsky believed this was humanity's greatest temptation. Not the temptation to be evil, but the temptation to give up, to stop struggling, to let someone else carry the burden of being human. Peterson sees this happening now, not through overt tyranny, through comfort, through distraction, through ideologies that promise to solve the problem of meaning without requiring you to actually do anything difficult. And modern men are particularly vulnerable, because the traditional structures that once gave men purpose, those are gone, or at least weakened. The role of provider, of protector, of leader, these aren't automatically granted anymore. They have to be earned. And many men don't know how. So they retreat into video games, into pornography, into digital communities where they can feel powerful without risking anything real, into ideologies that explain why it's not their fault, why the system is rigged, why trying is pointless. And Peterson says, this is the underground man. This is Raskolnikov before the murder. This is the man who's given up his freedom without even realizing it. But Dostoevsky didn't just diagnose the problem. He offered a solution. And it's not what you'd expect. The solution is suffering. Voluntary suffering. Meaningful suffering. Not suffering for its own sake, but suffering for something that matters. Taking on a burden you could refuse. Accepting responsibility you could avoid, facing the chaos you'd rather ignore. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov is saved, not by escaping punishment, but by accepting it, by confessing, by submitting to exile in Siberia, and there, in prison with nothing left, he begins to transform. Dostoevsky writes that Raskolnikov picks up the Bible. He doesn't understand it yet, but he's ready to try. He's finally humble enough to receive something beyond himself. Peterson emphasizes this constantly. You don't find meaning by pursuing happiness, or comfort, or pleasure. You find meaning by taking on responsibility, by confronting suffering voluntarily, by saying, I will carry this burden because someone has to, and if not me, then who? This is what separates a man from a boy. Not age, not achievement, but the willingness to shoulder a weight you could put down. And when you do this, something changes. The nihilism evaporates. The resentment dissolves. Not because life gets easier, but because you've aligned yourself with something real, something that endures, something that gives your suffering purpose. Dostoevsky believed this deeply. He'd suffered more than most. Epilepsy, poverty, imprisonment, gambling addiction, the death of his children. He had every reason to become bitter, to hate existence, but he didn't. He wrote in a letter, I believe like a child that suffering will be healed and smoothed over, that the whole offensive comedy of human contradictions will disappear like a mirage, and that ultimately, at the world's finale, in the moment of eternal harmony, there will occur and be revealed something so precious that it will suffice for all hearts, to allay all indignation, to redeem all human villainy, all the blood that has been shed. Peterson quotes this often, because it's not naive optimism. Dostoevsky had seen the worst of humanity, and he still believed in redemption. He still believed in meaning. He still believed that suffering could be transformed into something sacred. And this is what Peterson wants modern men to understand. You're not doomed. The meaninglessness you feel, the emptiness, the sense that nothing matters, that's not the truth. That's what happens when you refuse your own potential, when you shrink from responsibility, when you choose comfort over growth. But you can choose differently. You can pick up your cross. You can face the dragon. You can descend into the underworld of your own psyche and integrate what you find there. This is hard. Dostoevsky never pretended it wasn't. His characters suffer enormously. They make terrible mistakes. They hurt themselves and others. But the ones who survive, the ones who transform, they do it by accepting their suffering rather than running from it. Alyosha in The Brothers Karamazov, the youngest brother, the one who chooses faith, not blind faith, but faith that's been tested, faith that's stared into the abyss and decided to love anyway. Peterson says Alyosha represents the ideal, not the powerful man, not the intellectual man, but the man who carries his burden with grace, who serves others without resentment, who maintains his connection to the sacred even when everything argues against it. And Dostoevsky believed this kind of man could save the world, not through revolution, not through ideology, but through quiet, persistent, voluntary goodness, through being the person who refuses to let the darkness win. So here's what Peterson is really saying when he talks about Dostoevsky's darkest warning. The warning isn't about society collapsing. It's not about political systems failing. It's about you, about what happens inside you when you give up, when you stop believing in meaning, when you convince yourself nothing matters. Because Dostoevsky showed what comes next. The underground man, Raskolnikov, the Grand Inquisitor's slave, men who've cut themselves off from the source, who've traded their souls for comfort or pride or safety. And Peterson is asking, is that who you want to be? Is that who you're becoming? Look honestly. Look at how you spend your time, what you pursue, what you avoid, what you've given up without even realizing it. Are you taking on responsibility? Or are you retreating? Are you facing your suffering? Or are you numbing it? Are you becoming who you could be? Or are you shrinking into who you've always been? These aren't abstract questions. They're the most practical questions you can ask, because how you answer them determines everything. Your relationships, your work, your mental health, your sense that life has meaning. Dostoevsky understood this. Peterson understands this. And now you understand this. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you pick up the burden? Or will you put it down? Will you descend into the underground of your own psyche and face what's there? Or will you stay on the surface where it's safe? Most men choose safety. Most men choose comfort. Most men choose the path of least resistance. But most men also report feeling empty, anxious, lost, like something's missing but they can't name it. That missing thing is meaning. And meaning comes from voluntary suffering, from responsibility freely chosen, from looking at the chaos of existence and saying, I will bring order to my corner of it, even if it costs me everything. This is what Dostoevsky dedicated his life to exploring. This is what Peterson has dedicated his life to teaching. And this is what you're being confronted with right now. Not through coercion, not through manipulation, but through the same quiet challenge that Christ offered in the Grand Inquisitor story. The challenge of freedom, real freedom. the terrifying, beautiful freedom to choose who you will become. You can refuse it. You can go back to sleep. You can pretend you didn't hear this, but you did hear it, and that changes things, because once you know the choice is yours, you can't unknow it. Dostoevsky wrote in The Brothers Karamazov, "Beauty will save the world." People quote that without understanding what he meant. He didn't mean aesthetic beauty. He meant the beauty of a soul that's been tested and refined, the beauty of suffering transformed into meaning, the beauty of a man who's faced his own darkness and emerged intact. That's the beauty that saves, not because it's pretty, but because it's real, because it proves that transformation is possible, that hell doesn't have to be permanent, that you can descend and return. Peterson teaches this because he believes you can do it. Not easily, not quickly, but genuinely. You can stop being the underground man. You can stop being Raskolnikov before the confession. You can refuse the Grand Inquisitor's offer. And when you do, you don't just save yourself, you become a light for others. You prove by example that meaning is possible, that responsibility can be borne, that life, despite its suffering, is worth living fully. This is Dostoevsky's darkest warning and his brightest hope. The warning: if you give up your freedom, you lose your soul. The hope: if you accept your suffering, you can be redeemed. Modern men stand at this crossroads. Every day, every moment, the choice is always there: comfort or growth, safety or meaning, the underground or the world. And Peterson is simply pointing at what Dostoevsky pointed at over a century ago. The truth you already know but keep forgetting: that you are free, terrifyingly free, beautifully free, free to choose hell or heaven, free to embrace meaning or reject it, free to become or to stagnate. What Dostoevsky saw is this: most people are afraid of that freedom. They run from it. They create elaborate justifications for why they can't do what they know they should do. They build ideological prisons and call them liberation. But some people, a few, accept the burden. They walk forward even though it's hard. They carry their cross even though it's heavy. They face their shadow even though it's terrifying. And those people change the world, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet accumulation of voluntary goodness, through being slightly more than they were yesterday, through refusing to lie, through taking responsibility they could avoid. That's the pattern Dostoevsky found in human existence. That's the pattern Peterson teaches. And that's the pattern available to you right now. Not someday, not when you're ready. Now, in this moment, with the life you have, the circumstances you're in, the burdens you carry. You can pick them up voluntarily. You can say yes to your own potential. You can stop waiting for permission or perfect conditions or the right feeling. You can just begin. And when you do, something shifts. Not externally. The world doesn't suddenly get easier. But internally, you're no longer the same person. You're no longer the victim of your circumstances. You're the agent of your own transformation. This is what Peterson found in Dostoevsky. This is what changed his life. This is what he spent decades trying to articulate. And this is what he's offering to anyone willing to listen. The offer is simple. Stop running. Stop hiding. Stop pretending you don't know what you need to do. Face it. All of it. Your weakness, your potential, your responsibility, your freedom, and then act accordingly. Dostoevsky knew this wouldn't be popular. He knew most people would choose the easier path. He knew the Grand Inquisitor's offer would always be more attractive than Christ's challenge. But he also knew some people would choose differently. Some people would read his books and recognize themselves, and those people would change. Not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely. And that was enough. That made the writing worth it. That made the suffering worth it. Because transformation is possible. Redemption is real. Meaning can be found, even in the darkest underground, even after the worst crimes, even in the face of total meaninglessness. There's still a way forward, but you have to take it. No one can take it for you. No ideology can do it for you. No system can substitute for your own voluntary choice. This is the message. This is the warning. This is the hope. All bound together in Dostoevsky's dark, beautiful, unforgiving, redemptive vision of human existence. And Peterson is standing here, over a century later, saying the same thing. You are more than you think you are. You can bear more than you believe you can. And your life can mean something if you're willing to pay the price. That price is your comfort, your excuses, your resentment, your retreat. What you get in return is yourself, your real self, the person you could be if you stopped settling for who you are. That's the trade. That's the offer. That's the darkest warning and the brightest hope. The choice has always been yours. It still is. It will be tomorrow, and the day after, and every day until you stop choosing. So what will you choose? If this opened your eyes to something you've been avoiding, if you felt the weight of that question, then you're ready for more. Subscribe to the Hidden Codex. Hit that notification bell, because we don't stop at the surface here. We go deeper, into the texts no one wants to read, into the truths no one wants to face, into the transformation that's possible when you stop running. Next time, we explore what Nietzsche and Jung discovered about the same darkness Dostoevsky mapped. You don't want to miss that. Until then, carry your burden well.